Hey everyone, good afternoon. So today we are here in the beautiful Whitsundays and we're just having a casual chat with George Christensen. How are you, George?
Very good. Sonia.
Welcome to the beautiful Airlie Beach.
It's looking lovely.
It's a beautiful day out there today, and just so happens that Queensland has opened up to the world.
We have indeed.
Queensland.
Yeah, that's the world.
That's the world.
But and now there's flights direct into Airlie Beach here from
Yeah,
Brisbane,
so if you
it's
didn't
great.
know, Brisbane to Airlie,
$99.
$99. Now you won't actually get that. It's very hard to get that kind of
Yeah,
price,
it's a
isn't
pretty
it?
good
It
price,
is.
particularly post-pandemic.
Yeah, so we could all do with some cheap flights. So today we actually thought we'd come together and have a little bit of a chat about what's been going on in Australia and just get some really simple answers to some questions that we might have about what's going on over there in China. What is happening with the government and what's happening with us. And George is here to explain a little bit more for us and how we can get involved and help. So let's get into it.
Great.
One of the first questions I've got for you today, George, is about China. How much do we actually export to China versus other countries?
Well, about 36% or more of all of our exports go to China. So that's the breakup.
Yeah.
It is the biggest market for Australia, and that's great. It's great to trade with another country, but
Yeah.
the problem is when the other country starts making certain demands to continue accepting your trade. That's an issue.
And that's where we are today.
Yep.
So, and that's why we've come together to have a little bit of chat about that. Okay, so my next question, why do we export so much to China?
Well, I think that it's happened almost naturally. There has been, China's opened itself up to the world, and we thought that that was going to lead to a democratisation in China and China playing more by the rules, but it doesn't seem to have been the case. In fact, what's happened is China's got very wealthy on the world opening up to China, and China opening up to the world, and it's happened because businesses and industries here in Australia have seen an opportunity to make more money there in China, which is understandable, but when it starts to go against the national interest, there's an issue.
And so when you mentioned that, they make a lot of money through China, is it purely based on profit, or is it that it's just easier to deal with China, or is it a case of, it's just always been done like that, so let's just keep doing it like that?
I don't think it's a matter of it being easy. I think it's a matter of that there's a billion people there in China.
A big consumption.
And, huge consumption, and even 1% of the very wealthy of that billion people is a lot.
That's a lot of people compared to Australia.
It's a market that companies have wanted to be part of. But again, the problem is when they know they've got a stranglehold on certain industries and certain countries because so many eggs have been put into that
We're
one
very
basket.
reliant of that income stream.
Then that's the problem. If they start trying to use the trade dollars for political leverage, then really they've got a control on your country.
Yeah, and that's essentially what started happening, because I've seen in the news that they've shut down the beef, and then they're looking at wine and the barley and that sort of stuff. So, yeah.
And the question is, why did they do that?
Yeah.
Well, they did that because Australia took a different foreign policy stance to what China wanted. Australia advocated for an international review into the origins of the pandemic.
Yeah.
China didn't want that, and so as a result, China does what it does in terms of its trade. So it was
Being a
very
little
difficult.
bit of if this was happening in the schoolyard, we'd say a bully
A bully. That's indeed what you would say.
in the schoolyard.
But I guess it's much more than that when it comes to nations. I mean, to say that we will only do business with you, or we will only not put restrictions on you if you do what you're told. It's an erosion of independence. It's an erosion of
Yeah, that doesn't
sovereignty.
sound like a two-way mutual relationship, or that we're actually maintaining independence from them.
So we need to trade with China for sure, but not be reliant on them, and not be in a position where that country has power to dictate to our country what
How we run
do.
our country. Then I had another question for you. One, how can we diversify? And are we, the reason obviously you've said we've gone into China because there's a lot more population, but is there any reason why we can't start focusing on diversifying to the rest of the world? Because there is massive amounts of people in the world, not just one country. So is there any reason why we're not really focusing on diversifying to other parts of the world?
I think there's been a failure, not just in terms of one political party, but across governments of all political persuasions, and also a failure in industry really to broaden the horizon and look for other markets while the going's so good in one market. And so you've led to this problem where industries are exposed and our country's exposed to economic blackmail basically. So we need to look at other markets, many other markets. There's rising markets throughout Southeast Asia, throughout East Asia. India is a huge market, which is
massive amount of people over in India.
Almost like China. And so, we could take advantage of that market, but we don't want to recreate the same situation
over there.
So we've got to broaden. There's many opportunities, and in fact, as you know, I'm conducting a parliamentary inquiry into this issue. We're looking at the diversification.
And we're going to touch on that today as well.
We're looking at the diversification of Australia's trade profile and investment profile, and these are the questions that we're going to be asking and hopefully coming up with some answers.
Yeah, and I think it's really good that you've put that together. We are actually going to cover that later on in the interview, so make sure you stick around and watch that. Now, the other thing I want to ask you, what needs to be set up here in Australia to help businesses export and diversify themselves into other countries?
Yeah, well, look, we have really good platforms already. We've got Austrade, which does a lot, but I think that there's going to have to be more that's done to enable businesses to take advantage of new and emerging markets and growing markets that we haven't been really tapping into before. Yeah, that's right. I mean, so there's a whole host of different barriers to trade, and there's a whole host of government rigmarole and regulation that businesses need to get their head around, and that's where our government agency, Austrade, can come into play. And we also have a couple of other different programs like the Export Market Development Grant, which should be boosted. I believe it should be boosted.
Tell us a little bit about that one.
So that helps businesses actually market their product or service into the country that they want to go into. So advertising, going to trade fairs and trade shows.
Wow, and is that limited to just big businesses, or is it smaller? Like,
I can tell
let's say I set up a business.
There's little tourism operators here in Early Beach that have gone right around the world with their product with this grant, and so that can help them, but it does need to be boosted because there's not enough funds in that program.
Into that section.
And they've also got this government finance corporation it was called EFIC, I think it's still called EFIC, but it's the Export Finance Investment Corporation, so it does help businesses that are really looking at a surge in goods or services to an export market in helping them finance that push.
It sounds like there's a lot of opportunity out there for smaller businesses to really start expanding their portfolio. Maybe people weren't aware of those sorts of things that were out there.
There's a little bit of that, and there's also a little bit of not enough money going into those things. And I think that if we're going to redirect our economy towards countries which aren't threatening us, then we really need to have those agencies step up to the fore with new funding, so that small businesses, medium businesses, all businesses can take advantage.
Yeah, so that's been a really great explanation as to what's going on with the trade section here. So we've got another segment coming up for you, so thank you so much for explaining the trade for us. Stay tuned, because now we're going to talk about investments.